Now that the Mueller report has been delivered to Attorney General William Barr, we are getting our first leaks from the Justice Department about the Mueller report. What a coincidence. Every day the Mueller investigation was operative, there was not a single leak from the Mueller team or anyone in the Justice Department about the Mueller investigation. Not one leak. But now the Justice Department has decided it is time to leak, and its first leak seems to be a very defensive leak, defensive of Attorney General William Barr. It took 2 days for the news media to realize that a point that was first raised by Ari Melber on this network when the Attorney General's letter became public Sunday night is a very important point, a small and simple detail, but a very important point. How many pages is the report? And as of last night, at this hour, the only thing we knew about that was that it was less than 1,000 pages, because that is what House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler said the Attorney General told him in a 10-minute phone call yesterday. According to Chairman Nadler, the first thing he asked about was the length of the report. Chairman Nadler did not feel free to answer reporters' specific questions about the length, but after being peppered with questions and through a process of elimination series of questions, he agreed to the notion that it was less than 1,000 pages. The Attorney General knows that the longer the report, the more suspicious his letter looks. How could the Attorney General digest a 1,000-page report and write a conclusive summary of it in 48 hours on 4 pages of Justice Department stationery? And so today, the Justice Department has leaked to everyone in the news media. NBC News, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, everyone. Everyone has been given essentially the same leak about the number of pages. And that leak is pulling the number of pages down from an estimate of 700 pages that Fox News offered to the under 1,000 that Chairman Nadler offered. The Justice Department has decided it urgently needs to leak a lower number of pages because that apparently seems helpful to the Attorney General. The fewer the pages, the easier it would be for him in 48 hours to come up with his 4 pages. So the New York Times reports the still secret report on Russian interference in the 2016 election submitted by the special counsel Robert S. Mueller III last week was more than 300 pages long, according to the Justice Department. It raises questions about what Mr. Barr might have left out of the 4 dense pages he sent to Congress. No kidding. I guess it does do that. But, you know, a lot of us had those questions before we knew how many hundreds of pages the report might be. The Wall Street Journal reports a person familiar with the matter said it runs between 300 and 400 pages, not including exhibits. Really? Not including exhibits? Exhibits and indices and supplementary material in government reports like this could run hundreds of pages themselves. And so the Fox News report last night by former Judge Andrew Napolitano that the report was 700 pages long might still be true. Or the full report could be over 900 pages. We don't know. It could easily be the longest special prosecutor's report in history. We don't know. We don't know anything about the Mueller report. That is why our first guest tonight, Quinta Jurecic, wrote in The Atlantic, "This is a time of suspended animation. After the investigators have finished their work, but before it's clear precisely what the conclusion of that work means." Suspended animation. And most of the news media is just now starting to realize that they wildly leapt to conclusions about the Mueller report based on the Barr letter, the 4-page Barr letter. The longer the little Barr letter remains the only public document about the Mueller report, the more indignant Democrats in Congress are getting.
For Mr. Barr to quickly issue a 4-page report in his attempt to try and exonerate President Trump, and now to delay the release of an over 300-page report written by Mueller so the American people and we senators and congressmen can see what was written, has too much of the odor of political expediency to help the man who appointed him, President Trump.
I have said, and I'll say again, no thank you, Mr. Attorney General. We do not need your interpretation. Show us show us the report, and we can draw our own conclusions. We don't need you interpreting for us. It was condescending, it was arrogant, and it wasn't the right thing to do.
Leading off our discussion tonight is the journalist who gave us that perfect phrase for where this story is now, suspended animation. Quinta Jurecic is managing editor of Lawfare, a website dedicated to national security law. She's also a contributing writer for The Atlantic. She's been following every twist and turn in the Mueller investigation, and she is patiently awaiting the Mueller report. She's not one of the people who leapt to any big conclusions about the Mueller report based on the Barr letter. Also leading off our discussion tonight is Ron Klain, who has done so many things in government that make him an expert on the state of suspended animation we are floating in now. He was a Clinton White House official when Kenneth Starr delivered his special prosecutor's report to the Congress and the public about President Bill Clinton. He has Justice Department experience as Chief of Staff to Attorney General Janet Reno. He was counsel to the Senate Judiciary Committee and in the Obama administration, an advisor to Vice President Biden and to President Obama. Thank you both very much for joining us tonight and starting off this discussion. And Quinta, how does it feel? Because you're one of the first people who tried to tell at least the journalistic world, slow down. We don't know what you think we know. It seems like the media is catching up to their own ignorance about our own ignorance about the Mueller report.
Well, I don't know if I'm the first, but yes, I think that as time goes on, the media does seem to be sort of catching up to this place, as you say, realizing how little we know, to the point where now, as you pointed out, we're really just haggling over page numbers, between 300 and 400 pages, but there's so much that could be contained. And we're really just waiting until the Attorney General gives us more to deal with.
And Ron, this page number issue, which we've literally covered every night this week, there's been a new piece of information about it every night, starting Tuesday night. The page number issue is, of course, in fact, when you have nothing, it's hugely important because it gives you some sense of the scope of this, and it would start to give you the feeling that, well, there must be several pages, for example, on the attempt to get testimony or an interview with President Trump, probably a narrative of that could very well include discussions with the Trump lawyers about the Fifth Amendment and the various procedural roadblocks that might have been thrown in the prosecutor's way.
Yeah, Lawrence, I mean, look, we have actually even less information than that because we have a 4-page memo from Attorney General Barr that reflects his joint conclusion with Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein about the question of obstruction. And while I do think in general Barr and Rosenstein are honorable lawyers, on the particular issue of obstruction, they both had peculiar views. Barr got the job because he wrote a memo to Trump's lawyers saying there couldn't be obstruction here, and Rosenstein wrote the paper that Trump used to fire Jim Comey in the first place. So, I mean, taking Barr and Rosenstein's word on the idea that there's no obstruction here is like believing Yogi and Boo Boo when they say there are no picnic baskets in the cave. We have to see the facts, and we have to see the 300-plus pages, plus the hundreds more pages of actual evidence, of exhibits, of statements, of all the other things that are with this report. Until we have that, we just don't know.
And Quinta, now we have the people in the Democratic House talking about the possibility of having to subpoena it. They're already feeling as though Attorney General Barr is unlikely to meet the deadline of Tuesday next week that they initially set for when we first need to see the Mueller report.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And I think there are good and bad reasons why Barr may not be able to meet that deadline. A good reason might be it really is a long document and he wants to go through it thoroughly. You know, there's potentially sensitive classified information or information that was provided in front of a grand jury, which is legally protected. The other possibility is, what the Democrats seem to fear, which is that the Attorney General may be stonewalling. And I think that's why they're pushing so hard right now to get Barr in a position where they can make sure that they will be able to see the report.
So, Ron Klain, we have extraordinarily different treatment of the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, which is now Republican Lindsey Graham, the committee you used to work for, and the House Judiciary Committee, which is Democratic Chairman Jerry Nadler. Attorney General Barr went out to dinner with Lindsey Graham, which gives a terrible appearance at this stage of the game, and then just had a 10-minute phone call with Jerry Nadler. And here's a report NBC News has about what staff is saying about the situation with Chairman Nadler. At a Thursday briefing, senior House Democratic staff elaborated on a Wednesday night call between Barr and Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler, telling reporters that Barr refused to commit to asking a judge to release grand jury information to Congress, and the staffers emphasized that Barr all but refused to give Nadler an unredacted copy of the report. Your reaction to that, Ron?
Well, I mean, not only is there no justification for that, we're actually now going backwards from Watergate-level precedents. In the end, as we know, the House Judiciary Committee got a hold of all the materials that the special prosecutor Leon Jaworski developed there, in part by using the appropriate federal rules to get them released from the court. And I think it's possible that may have to happen here. I mean, look, I think there may be several rounds of fighting about privilege and grand jury material, about classified material. But in the end, I think the House and the Senate Judiciary Committees will see this report. And they also have other leverage. They can cut off funding to the Attorney General. As I said, they can go apply to the court for a release of the grand jury material. There's a lot of tools they have. I don't think they're going to get this report by Tuesday, but they're going to keep fighting until they get it.
And so we are in a state of suspended animation until at least Tuesday at the very, very earliest. Quinta Jurecic and Ron Klain, thank you both very much for joining us tonight, leading off this discussion. Really appreciate it. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.